Hey, welcome back to Next Third, Best Third. I'm David Fenwick, your founder and your host. Today we're going to do something that I think is going to be very beneficial to each of you. We're going to go through the different pillars, the 5 pillars of Next Third, Best Third, and we're going to give you tips as to how to really master each and every one of them. I'm here with my friend Juliana Page. Juliana, welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, so Juliana is a coach, a life coach, an entrepreneur, an author, a podcaster. I mean, you're just a Renaissance woman, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes. So what we're going to do, Juliana, there's 5 pillars. There's the pillars of cognitive health, which is, I really focus a lot on thought life, physical, taking care of yourself physically, emotional health, relationships, and then the one that gets kind of out there a little bit, spiritual is what I call it, but it's really those things that all of us wrestle with, and men in particular have a sense of, they don't even deal with it kind of thing, they suppress it, but things like shame and guilt and disillusionment, disappointment, complacency, those kind of things, right?
Yeah, just that, no big deal.
Just that, nothing big, But they're things we wrestle with, but
Truly.
we sometimes we hide from it or we run from it. And I know with all the men that I deal with, a lot of guys, they don't even want to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
They're just going to man up, just going to avoid it, and that's never healthy.
Yeah,
so
whatever that means.
That's whatever. So let's just start with cognitive health and your thought life. Why don't you just kind of dig in there from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things with just your thought and your mind is realizing that I am not my thoughts, I'm the thinker of my thoughts. And that can be profound for any person just to realize that, because your body, your nervous system often doesn't know that a thought is not a reality. We literally experience it like it's real. So even when you are watching movies, let's say, when you're watching something, you're thinking something about that scene and your body thinks it's a real thing. So with 3D, we can see that, right? We can see that our body's like, whoa, is it real? We don't know. So if you can just on a base level see that I am the thinker of my thoughts, but not my thoughts. So it's not wrong to think this thought. It's not wrong to give it some airtime, I like to say, but it doesn't mean it's true. And it doesn't mean that it needs my agreement. I don't have to keep running that thought if I don't want to. So that can be so empowering just on a base level. And then beyond that, once you start becoming aware of your thoughts, which does take a lot of stillness, and it does take a lot of being aware of how your mind works. And the way you can do that is getting your head out on paper, because you can't really see what's in your mind, right? You can feel it, it's all up there. But if you put it on paper, then you can start seeing what you're thinking about. And when you do that, there's something really profound. This is back in the day. There's a writer, her name is Julia Cameron. You might be familiar, but she has the book, The Artist's Way, and she has the morning pages. And the whole idea with the morning pages is you just write 3 pages straight, and then you don't edit it, and you don't go back and read it. Now, I did this, and this was back in the day, but I started doing this begrudgingly. Did not want to do this assignment, but I started getting tired of the stories I was telling. And I thought, well, nobody's making me write this story. Nobody is making me think this every day. So what does that mean?
Right.
That means that it's going to be me that's responsible to start renewing my mind or changing my mind. So that started opening me up to the desire, the need to do that. There was a real need to do that. We agree on the term stinking thinking. Right. When you start doing this reflective work, you start seeing how much you really do not think well. And then no wonder you don't operate well. And then that invites you to start doing some work about learning how to renew your mind. So those are 2 really great things. 1, I am the thinker of my thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. 2, I can see my thoughts if I start writing them down. And then I can decide, is this what I want to partner with? Is this what I want to agree with? Is this a story I want to keep telling or not?
That's really incredible. I never thought of that before, but if you can train yourself, like just writing out your thoughts and getting it there, because when you journal sometimes, if you're not careful, if you journal sometimes you're actually kind of lying to yourself, you're telling what I want to happen and that kind of thing. But if you're just writing out the thoughts that are coming to you. Yeah. I mean, that I can see how powerful that is.
It really is.
Yeah. I know it's just interesting. I'm doing acting. I'm doing this acting class I told you about. And they were telling us about how your body cannot distinguish between reality or fantasy.
Nope.
You know, they tell us to live truthfully in an imaginary situation.
So
It's true
good.
acting, right?
So good.
But I'm learning exactly what you're saying is about I'm the thinker of my thoughts, but I have never put it that way. So
Yeah.
that's really great.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And journaling, because we've all resisted this. I've had so
Yeah.
many people throughout my life say, "Are you a writer? You should really write. Do you journal?" And I'm
Right.
like, that almost sounds offensive, right? Like, I don't want to. It just sounds like punishment
Right.
in some sort of way, right? Go to your room and journal is kind of what it would sound like. So I always avoided it. But when I started doing it, especially when you start just being open and curious, taking that approach to, I'm just going to examine literally what's happening inside of me. There's so much external focus all the time, and we do curate the outside so well, but we never investigate the inside. So if you can't even think about what you're thinking about, then you can't start to change it. You can't start to renew it. So I go on a mission of just getting it out there, vulnerable, raw, like no one's going to read this. This is just for you. Almost like if you're going to vent to a friend, get it out like that. Or if you were going to tell a really good story, what would you write? And you might have a blank page for a minute because you're like, I'm really good, masterful even at telling the worst stories to myself and
Right.
being a bully to
Right.
myself. But you will see sabotage on paper. And it can just be bullet points in the beginning. It doesn't have to be like a long dissertation. But once you start doing that, you see, I got some work to do.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So does every human. But how great, because then I can get really good at thinking in a healthy way.
You know, it's interesting because as you're saying this, I'm thinking about how we avoid this, right?
Oh, yeah.
And of course, right now with all the screen time that we all have and the things that we just do, we just kind of we just check out.
Yeah.
We check out, but to be intentional, because that's a big word. We use intentionality a lot here at Next Third, Best Third, right?
I love.
To examine your life, take honest appraisal, and then with intentionality, take the steps to change, right?
Yes.
And I was reading a quote where Socrates says that an unexamined life is not worth living.
It's true.
And so when you think about what you're saying is to journal, you're really examining a part of your life. You're examining your thoughts. You're examining, and that will open up your emotions. It'll touch so much, right?
Yes. Well, we live in realities all the time. Like we live in what we think is true, but that doesn't mean it's the ultimate truth.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you start to examine your reality, you can see that I'm the creator of this. I am creating this. So if
Yes.
I want to change it, I have to see what is happening in order to change it.
Yes.
If I can't fix it, right? If I can't face what I'm seeing here, I can't fix it.
Right. This is such a tool for examination.
Totally.
Right? Write it out. Just come. What am I thinking? I'm just going to write it all out. And like say, this idea of writing it out and not looking at it again,
Yeah.
that's powerful.
It's powerful. And it's a consistent practice, right? So sometimes we write for it should sound good. So for example, in the education system, we're not taught how to think, we're told what to think. So this is not necessarily any of our faults, right? Like we've been told this is how we think. And we've been told this is what you do to be a good person, right? But we've never been taught how to think and to have constructive thinking or how to receive feedback or how to creatively think and process through things. So you can start changing that narrative in your mind for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. On a previous episode, I talked about daydreaming, right? And about how powerful daydreaming is. And when I first started Next Third, Best Third, I wanted to challenge men to dream again.
Yeah.
But I've changed it. I want to challenge men to daydream again because daydreaming is an intentional thing. Dreaming can just happen. You know? You can have a pizza dream. You can have just, crazy nightmare, all sorts of stuff. But daydreaming is actually taking time and going and putting yourself into different scenarios saying, what if this happens? Or where am I?
Yeah.
And it was so funny because when I was growing up, I went to a Catholic school and the nuns used to always berate me for being a daydreamer.
Oh, goodness.
I mean, you'll never amount to anything. You're just a daydreamer. And so I grew up with thinking daydreaming was bad. And then discovering later in life, even just recently, how powerful daydreaming is and what a tool it is, right? Because and I didn't realize that I'm putting it together with what you're saying, it's really a way for me to be the thinker of my thoughts, but starting to control those thoughts.
Yeah. Well, and some people might not love the word daydreaming. Like I can already feel the energy of that where it's like, I ain't got time for that. I'm busy. I got things to do. Like I get it. Because it's so hard to slow down. We do think that we don't have the luxury of that, but we don't see it as a necessity. So even if it's not daydreaming necessarily, it is that time to think just for the sake of thinking or just pay attention to your thoughts. And what I personally love doing is just giving myself prompts. Because bad questions get bad answers. It's like input equals output. So if you ask yourself really low level questions like, why is this happening to me? Which is so easy and human. Instead of what would be a power move that I could make right now? Right? What would be an empowering way if I were to create a shift in this moment? What would be a powerful way for me to show up? Now your brain is going to go to work to answer that question. So if you just ask some empowering questions as a daydream, right? Like I'm just going to dream it up for a second. I'm just going to brainstorm. I'm just going to see what my mind comes up with. If you give it the right prompts, it will sift for that answer.
Yeah, that's good. I still like the word daydream.
Well, I'm just offering in case that doesn't resonate with somebody.
No, I get it. But it's so good. Yeah, because, the question why, say that's base level.
Yeah.
And if you ask the right questions, you'll never ask why. Like how can I make a power move?
Yeah.
What can I learn in this situation? Where is this bringing me? Those kind of things. Yes. Why? You may never even ask the question why, no matter how bad the situation you're facing, right?
Yeah. What is this an opportunity for me to see? What is this giving me the opportunity to be? How can I communicate and express myself clearly? This is such accountability and responsibility. And I just think I didn't like the word responsibility. So maybe similar to you, if you grow up and you have to take on a bunch of responsibility, you don't like it because it just seems like work. And that was such a burden. So I had this redefined, and it's your ability to respond well to life. That is everybody's responsibility. And we can't respond well if we don't know what it is that needs our response. Right? And what's our business? What's other people's business? So we have to start becoming aware, which is a process. And then we start through that awareness becoming responsible. We're able to respond to things that ultimately need our attention and care.
Yeah. So in a sense, you see that as, I'll use the word boundaries about relationships and things, because what's mine and what's not.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
totally.
Somebody's over here doing all this. Is that really mine to deal with? Do I need to be responsible for or to that?
Well, I like to say you never want to be working on somebody else's problem more than they are.
Yeah.
But you have to recognize what is somebody else's business. So, for example, people might say in a relationship, you're making me feel, no, right? Well, I'm not that powerful. I'm not in your body. I can't make you feel any kind of way, right? I can't think for you. I can't feel for you, and I can't act for you. Okay? So that part is your business. How you process your thoughts, how you process your emotions, how you show up or don't show up is on you. Now, flip it. That's true for me too. What I am thinking about, like even if I feel triggered, that's my responsibility to recognize, why do I feel triggered? Why is this making me uncomfortable? What is going on in my mind? Okay, help me understand where this emotion is coming from. Is there some unresolved stuff going on in my heart? That's on me.
Right.
And a lot of times we try to project that, or we try to make somebody else responsible for that. So it's like hot potato. I just don't want to feel this way, so I'm just going to throw it over to you, right? And that's completely unfair to somebody else. And then it never gets to the bottom of actually what's happening. So
I like that image of hot potato.
Hot potato. It's like, I don't want to
in relationships, I don't care if it's a personal relationship, a business relationship, we can do that, right? You're doing this. This is on you. I'm feeling like this, or I'm not, And it's interesting because I know I had an interview with a gentleman who's talking about conflict with his wife. And he's talking about how they learned how not to conflict this way, hot potato. But instead what they would do is say, okay, what's our goal?
Yeah.
Right? As a married couple, what's our ultimate goal? Now I'm feeling triggered, or I'm not happy, or I'm feeling, scared or whatever, and they're conflicting together. Instead of throwing it on you, saying, okay, you're with me. I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. How can we get there together?
Yes.
Right?
Well, if you do it from a level of responsibility, it looks like I am always going to talk in the first person, and I'm going to take ownership of what's happening in me.
Yes.
And I'm going to, through doing some of this cognitive work that we're talking about, through doing that, I'm going to share what I've become aware of so that you can understand where I'm coming from. Because we want to have understanding so that we can have connection, right? And so that we can resolve things that are happening externally and also beneath the surface, because that builds trust and that brings us closer together. So we are for each other and we're for unity. But if we're not doing that work, then we can't communicate and we can't build that understanding and connection. So in a relationship, empathy, compassion, curiosity are always great, because if you don't operate with those, the other person will likely feel like they need to defend themselves or protect themselves. Like if someone's coming at you with a finger, that's a natural response, right? But if somebody's saying, when you said this, I was starting to feel this, and this is how I heard that. Because even in communication, right, there's what we think we're saying, what we're actually saying, how we think it's landing, and how that person is actually interpreting it. So there's many like layers of what's happening there. And so without each person doing their own work, then there can't be that connection and understanding. But when it is there, then we can work through things pretty easy. And that's a healthy thing. We're humans, right? You basically operate on different capacities all the time. Of course, there's going to be misunderstandings, but if you're doing work, you can communicate.
Yeah. But it goes back to, or what I hear is, okay, in the perfect scenario, you're both doing work.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about it is your significant other might not be doing that work, but it has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we're trying to challenge and inspire people is look at yourself and say, okay, it's going to start here. He or she might not be responding at all favorably to this, but that's not your responsibility.
Totally.
Your responsibility is to say, I'm going to do it. Right?
Yeah. Well, people aren't going to like this, but a lot of times when you're in a relationship, you have an agenda to fix this person or try to change them into the version that you want them to be. Yeah. Okay? What if that completely was off the table and you just had a role to appreciate them, right? And inspire them into the highest expression of who they're on this earth to be. Different agenda, right? Then secondly, when you always feel like somebody's trying to fix you, that feels really awful in a relationship.
Right.
So what I like to do, and this is where it's not fun, if this person never changed, okay? If they never changed, what would you do? What would you do? Because then it's like, okay, I'm going to just let them be them and I'm going to accept them as who they are. I'm not going to have this hidden agenda to try to like fix them and control them and manipulate them, which is actually not loving at all.
Right.
What I am going to do is I'm going to accept who they are and how they're showing up. And I'm going to look at myself and say, okay, how can I show up as a healthy, high-functioning human that communicates and expresses themselves well, regardless of how this other person shows up? And just imagine in the workplace, with kids, with your spouse, partner, right? With friends. Right. That's great, because then you are free to be yourself and you give them the freedom to be who they are too.
Yeah.
And that changes dynamics entirely. And things will shift when you do.
That's good.
Regardless of if they move or not. They will have to.
Yeah, you're not looking for some end product result, right?
No.
It's just going.
Like, we're not projects. Do you know what I mean? I think if we started to understand that, then you could actually celebrate the diversity of people and you could celebrate the gold that's in them without trying to, see what's wrong with them and what they always miss. Especially picture raising kids. Why aren't you doing this? You still didn't do this. Your grades are like this. Like, they're just like,
right.
All I'm hearing is what you want me to change, and I never see you celebrate me. I never see you speak life into me. Now I don't think you believe in me or even love me, because this doesn't feel very loving.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
Right? But we do this to ourselves. Like, we're all little kids on the inside, and we need good counsel all the time.
Yeah, so you're saying that, I was thinking to some of the guys that I work with, and that's the battle that they're doing, is they're always accusing themselves.
Yeah.
Why do you continue to do this? You never do this,
yeah.
right? And this is the inner conversation, and they don't celebrate themselves.
Yeah.
So
we don't know how. We haven't been trained how, right? Or similar to, I'm the thinker of my thoughts, I'm not my thoughts. Feelings aren't facts.
Yeah.
So this is a great one for men, right? Like, sometimes they'll hear women expressing themselves and they're like, gosh, you always say this stuff, or you think that I'm this. And it's, no, this woman is just expressing what is in her heart, right? But it doesn't mean that like that is a direct attack at you, or that exactly what she's feeling is a fact. But this is a lot that she's processing, and you can hear it and you can listen without making that mean something.
Yeah.
Powerful.
So much so.
Powerful.
So now we're segueing into emotion.
Yeah.
Right? Which is good, right? We want to try to touch on all of them. But emotion is such a big one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading, man, where was it? I was reading recently about the very thing about when a woman, she's going to express herself in emotion. She wants a safe place to be able to express her emotions in a relationship with her husband or, significant other. And the man sits there and he so often is like going, he's responding to every emotion. And by doing that, he's not providing a safe spot for her. And what she really wants is a safe spot to say, I'm feeling this, because that's just what she's going to do. So a woman's going to bring up emotions in general, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's always exceptions.
Yeah.
But bring up emotions, express emotions, kind of explore the emotions, just kind of, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Where a man in general is going to avoid emotion. He's going to separate them. He's going to deal with them, put them in boxes, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing about emotion, I break this down as it's literally energy in motion. Okay. And that's fuel. So your emotions are the fuel that you create with. And so we tend to think that, oh man, if I'm feeling this emotion, that's bad, or I'm not allowed to feel that, so I better push that one down, or I was only allowed to express this one growing up or in education systems or in work environments. So if I'm going to express that, that's going to be bad. It's going to get me in trouble. But that's not true. So it's literally just neutral. It's energy that's in motion. And if you don't want that emotion to kind of go rogue or go wild, you can also change the emotion. So when you think of being a high capacity person, there's just some people that you can see them. They've got great energy and you're like, what is up with you? Like, how do you carry this energy? Like other people are like Eeyore, they're going around and they're all mopey and like, they're always venting or making excuses about something, but there's just these high energy people and you're like, to some degree, you're like, are you acting? Like, what's happening here that your
this
energy
can't be real.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is real. And so what's different about those people is they've trained emotion. So a lot of people talk about emotional intelligence, and that's just being aware of your emotions in general. Okay. But we need emotional fitness.
Right.
Okay. So to be in a moment where somebody is expressing emotion, and both men and women need this, we both need safe spaces to feel. Because when you feel, you heal. So emotions are telling you what's actually happening inside your heart. That's what they do. They expose what's in your heart. And if they're coming up, they're important. They're valuable. Now, you don't have to stay in them, but you can recognize them just like a thought. What is this energy going to help me do? Or why is it coming up? So if you're driving a car, you've got all the signals on, right? If your tire pressure light comes on, that's indicating something for you, right? If your check engine light comes on, you're like, ooh, probably shouldn't go too much further with that one, right? So anger, joy, sadness, grief, like these are emotions. And there's actually an emotions wheel. I just challenge people to Google this because
I just looked at it,
you'll see that we only live in like two. And then we don't even, if you ask somebody, how are you feeling? They're like, frustrated, stressed, busy, but they don't actually name emotion.
Right.
And they don't even know the full spectrum of who they are, because emotion is how you fully express and communicate yourself with the world. And so we usually get angry because we're not able to express. We're not being understood. We feel like a boundary has been crossed, but then we don't even have a language to communicate that or express it. So when you look at energy that's in motion, you can decide if that's going to help you create the outcome you want. So if I keep kind of feeding my anger, is that going to make a bigger mess for me, or is that going to actually serve me in some kind of way? Because it is great to actually get angry about things, to know why you're angry. Okay? So then you can start to see what's really going on here. Why is it that bothered me?
Right.
Okay? Now, if you are feeling really joyful, that's important to pay attention to, because we usually want to like cap our joy. Don't be too joyful. Don't be too happy. And it's crazy when you say that out loud, right? But that's actually strength. Okay? Joy is a very powerful emotion to create with, and you can shift emotion. So if you don't believe me, everyone has done this in some sort of way. You could be like riffing with somebody in a negative way, okay? Just like hashing it out. Then somebody calls you and you're like, what's good? What's up?
Right.
You changed. Instantly. You were so heated over here, and then you're like a happy human over here when you take the phone call.
Controlling you over here,
you can control your
that.
emotion, which is really powerful to see. And so if you're going through your day, let's say, you can keep riding, I'm so frustrated, but you're telling yourself this, you're starting to believe it, and you're creating with that energy. Okay. Now, if you want to shift your energy, what is a more powerful emotion that I can choose as fuel right now? Okay. So if you are needing to produce or create an outcome, right? Depression probably won't get you there.
Right.
Right. So how can you not bypass emotion, because I don't believe in any sort of emotional bypassing, but how can I start moving closer towards energy that will help me? Because there are times where you do just need to process emotion. You've got trauma, right? You've got unhealed pain that is coming up that's going to prevent you from showing up fully in your reality. That is different. You don't bulldoze through that.
Right.
Okay. And you don't just shift that. You got to feel that. And you got to process that and work through that. But when you do, you start developing the range of emotional capacity that you can work through, and you start developing emotional fitness. So now when you get frustrated, you can pivot or shift in a way where that would have taken you out and ruined your whole day. Now you're like, oh, I see what's going on here. Here's what I need to actually choose that will give me fuel to show up in this moment. That's self-control. That's emotional fitness, because you are not choosing to react when you could.
Right.
And you're choosing to respond well, which is sometimes no response, which takes an incredible amount of wisdom, okay, and presence. But this is all emotional capacity. And your average human doesn't even know what they're feeling, doesn't even recognize that they're not what they're feeling, similar to they're not what they're thinking, and then they don't do the work to process and to shift emotion.
This is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. Because I've just been learning. Again, I'm going to go back to the whole acting thing.
Yeah, it's such a great example.
Exploring emotions, right? And bringing them up and actually bring them up and looking at them.
Yeah.
Because they become a tool.
They are.
Why am I feeling this way? What can I do to, feel differently? And I'm going to use that daydream term because one of our exercises has been to, before we go into a scene, is to create a daydream that will bring us certain emotions, right? Yeah. Kind of a ballpark of emotions that you're aiming for, right?
Yes.
And you go there, and then when you enter in to the scene, you've brought these up.
Yeah.
You're experiencing them, right? You're exploring them. And now you walk into the scene. And the scene might not be a scene that you're actually showing those. Yeah. But this fuels you so that you can go into the scene properly, right?
100%.
Or with the full energy, right?
Yes.
But that's something that I've avoided certain emotions all my life.
Yeah.
And so, as I've dug into these things more, doing exactly what you're saying, it's kind of cool because I'm starting to like myself. I'm starting to get, I'm starting to say, hey, there's nothing wrong with me being angry. There's nothing wrong with me being fearful. There's nothing wrong, so.
No, and you'll start to love your life also, right? So when you think about it like a color spectrum, right? When you start learning, maybe in an art class where you started learning to mix color, right? Most people live in black and white. It's this or that. It's this or that. And we learn how to numb, and we learn how to repress, or we learn how to just suck it up and deal with it and just charge forward, which that's not helping you in any sort of way. Yeah. It's just causing all those problems and all that internal strife to chase you down and build up. And then volcanic reaction is the outcome at some point.
When you brought up color spectrum, it just also triggered a memory. So I have a daughter who, when she was younger, and she probably still does it, but she always would associate and attach colors to things. She'd do it to numbers. She'd do it to things that was happening. Yes. And like something would be going on, and she says, well, that's green, and that's blue. And I always thought to myself, going, man, I wish I could see the way she sees. Yes. Because she emotionally, she would experience, and she always has been, one of those people who just experiences emotions. Yeah. Sometimes, she's had to learn how to deal with them, right?
Yeah.
And how to,
well, that usually is a descriptor of a highly sensitive person. Yeah. And we've been taught that our sensitivity is wrong, or that it's bad, or that you're just too emotional is kind of a phrase that gets thrown out. But it's a lie, right? Your sensitivity is one of your greatest gifts. And when you start feeling and processing all of your emotions, not only do you heal, which when you heal, you live with more peace, you live with more freedom internally, you live with more vitality, you see things from a different lens, right? Things aren't black and white, and there's so much color to life. And so when you start feeling everything and you look at this feeling wheel, it actually is in color. You start developing your capacity to feel and express yourself. You see into yourself, which is intimacy. So you can see into who you are and value and appreciate yourself. And then you can see into other people, and then that's connection. So most people are so disconnected because they're not feeling. Okay, and they're not processing emotion. But when you feel, you cultivate intimacy with yourself, And then other people can see you and trust you. And then vice versa. You can see more into other people and have way more empathy, compassion, presence, sensitivity to what they're experiencing without being like, go deal with it.
Right.
When you're done having your temper tantrum, come back
Right.
to me, right? Instead of that kind of off-putting behavior, you can actually be with somebody and it's not intimidating, right? Of course you feel that way. You have every right to feel that way given what you're experiencing, right? And then there's compassion, and now we're connected and healing happens and we're on our way. And it just needed a moment. Like the perfect example is just picture a little kid. Okay, a little kid is like playing, then they take it too far, maybe they stumble, they hurt themselves, they're in a whole new world now, they're having a temper tantrum. Then it's like a squirrel moment. You just change their focus. They process that a little bit and they're already on to the next thing. We're designed to be that way too. However, through adulting, we just started bottling it all up.
That's right.
And then we built like resentment and unforgiveness and all this other stuff. And then that's our lens. So not only are emotions fuel, but they are your lens for how you see life and how you experience it. So
Absolutely.
what you just said, now that I'm learning how to feel, now that I'm learning to dig into and draw more emotion for myself that I hadn't activated before, I didn't even know it was in there.
Right.
But now that I'm drawing on it and I'm practicing showing up in a different way, I'm kind of a cool dude. Like I like myself.
It's so true, and I know there's some guys here like on this emotion thing I don't even want to deal with, but you have to, right? You have to examine yourself. You have to take that honest appraisal, and it's so worth it. As I've been doing this at this stage of my life, I'm doing this, and my life is changing. One of my daughters was having coffee with me the other day, and I shared this a couple episodes ago. But she came up to me, and we were talking about things, and she goes, Dad, she goes, I like this version of you better than any version in the past.
So good. What a compliment.
I was like going, that was so awesome, because it's like going, I'm really living,
Yes.
And it's never too late, right?
Yes.
To get these tools and to step into them. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 30, 50, 70. I mean, it's never too late, but it's this constant sense of complacency. Like I see it with so many guys because they've been taught not to be emotional.
Yeah.
Because they've avoided emotions all their life.
Yeah.
They've settled into this complacent, that's not even, just this rut.
Yeah.
Saying, well, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And it's such a lie.
Yeah, like there's a lie that we can't change, or this
Right.
is just how it's going to continue, or this is just who I am, or this is just my personality. But no, like your identity is something that you evolve into. So it's not like a static thing. It's something that you're constantly exploring, discovering, activating. Your thoughts are changing all the time, right?
Yeah.
Our emotions are shifting through so many different colors of emotion all the time too. And so that is normal, actually. And a healthy person can do that without being super afraid of that or repressing from that or running from that. Like I think we've all learned to be great escape artists, whether that is numbing our emotions through drugs, alcohol, many different things. We choose so many ways to numb ourselves,
Right.
TV, social media even.
Yeah.
We just numb, right? I just don't want to feel this way. I just don't want to deal with it is kind of how it starts. And then we find something else. But it's the greatest lie, because when you actually start thinking and when you actually start feeling and expressing and communicating, it's almost like letting air out. You like let out all of the wrong stuff. Or an example, if you have a cup, right, and let's say it's just full of coffee, it's just brown in there, right? If you keep pouring in the right stuff, you literally sift out all the dark stuff, and then you're just this free vessel that's got so much goodness inside. So you literally are constantly flushing your system of toxins that are in there.
Right.
And unprocessed emotion and really heavy negative thoughts, they literally are like self-destruction.
Wow. This is so good.
Yeah.
So, as we go on, we're just going to be in thoughts and emotions on this one, right? We're not going to go any further. Kind of going towards wrapping this up. What would you say? Like what? Again, you've given this idea of writing out, and getting your thinking. But what practical ways would you give for people listening to start taking control of their thoughts and their emotions and utilizing them as a tool?
Yeah.
Instead of being controlled in a negative way.
Yeah. Well, I think never go this work alone. I would highly recommend having a coach in your life. I would highly recommend, if you need a therapist, having a therapist. So with therapy, for example, a lot of times that's helping you process trauma or things that you went through. It's helping you get a language or a grid for what you experienced. So you can start understanding that and having compassion towards yourself. Like there is nothing wrong with you, or you didn't cause that, or you didn't deserve that. Therapy is so incredibly healing and necessary. Now, coaching is helping you actualize all of that potential in you and helping you get radically responsible for it and show up in a powerful way, whether that is in your health, whether that is in your relationships, whether that is in your career, whether that is as a parent, a partner, whatever those things are. Coaching is helping you do that. And we just need safe spaces to do this work, because your partner can't always handle it, or you can't always bring that to your friends, or you definitely can't talk about it in a work environment. They really don't want to know. And they just want you to do your job. But that doesn't mean it's not necessary or that it's not something that's worthy of your investment. You are worthy of your investment. So starting to dare to do the work that some people will never do is the most courageous thing you could ever do. So it's starting to investigate. I call it being a coward. Where have you been a coward, and where are you going to start showing up courageously? And then who can you put on your advisory board to help you be a healthy human?
That's so good.
Yeah.
So good. I know 7 years ago when my life was just turned upside down, I had a friend of mine who said, David, if you do the hard work, I promise you your life will be better.
Oh, yeah.
And I did the hard work, and my life is better than it's ever been, despite what I went through, right?
Yeah.
And as you were talking about how a coach is so important, you know, when you're stepping into something and it's brand new and it's intimidating, right? I don't care who you are, it's intimidating.
It's the scariest
scary
work you'll ever
stuff.
do.
But it's like having a trainer. You know, a coach becomes a trainer.
It's a great example.
When I started working out, when I really started taking care of myself, I went ahead and hired a trainer. Because I wanted to know if I'm doing it correctly. You know, I wanted to make sure my foundation was secure. I wanted to just know that I was doing the reps the right way, teach me how to do this. And then once I got to a point, I could step out, and I didn't use that trainer anymore, but I still think I could use one every now and then. Kind of a funny.
Well, we all do. Like, if you're a human walking the planet, you need a coach. You are processing day to day way more than people did even generations before us, right? Like, you are sifting through so much information all the time. Your brain has to think and work through so much emotionally. Like, you see so much even just on the internet. You can go through like a whole emotional spectrum in like 30 seconds. That's not normal, actually. We're not designed for that. So we do need coaching, and you get it. When you have wise counsel in the workplace, when you have somebody helping you with your physical fitness, it just makes good sense. And you get great outcomes. And so coaching shows you obstacles. It shows you where your blind spots are. It helps you get around things. It helps you be intentional, like you're saying, like literally intend to show up some kind of way and follow through. There can be some acting to it in a sense where you live it before it happens, so you're more prepared to handle tough moments and confrontations. It's so valuable. It's
so valuable, And what I found too is when I've had people in my life who, I leaned on, they normalize things for me, right? When I'm there going, oh, this is insane, I shouldn't be thinking this. I go, no, everybody thinks that. This is normal. What you're going through right now is absolutely normal and expected. So we're going to give we're going to put all her contact information at the bottom of this information on the podcast, but this has been so much fun.
I'm
so
great.
Glad that you were here.
Thank you for having me.
If you all do me a favor, as always, if you'd like, if you'd subscribe, if you'd share, comment, it all helps the algorithm so we can get information and tools like this out to more people. Thanks. Make the next third your best third.